Let's get more on this and speak to Peter Mathews in Los Angeles, a professor of political science at Cypress College. Peter, many thanks for joining us today. So what do you think? Is this another Trump joke gone bad, or is this something a little more sinister?
I think Trump is trying to appeal to the extreme right wing of his base to get them all riled up to vote on Election Day. He's hoping for a low turnout from other people, so his people will vote. But it's a very dangerous and provocative statement. You know, people could interpret that as to him possibly even insinuating a threat against the presidential candidate. And when he says things like, you know, maybe the Second Amendment people can stop her or stop it, meaning Hillary's advocacy of regulating the guns. By the way, she's not ever advocated abolishing the Second Amendment. She only said she would like to have gun control or regulation, for example, having background checks and making sure people with mental instability don't have guns. There's other kinds of very common sense regulations which most Americans support. Trump is hammering that. And keep in mind, there are about 300 million guns in America, in American households, in about 35% of the households. So only about 1/3 of the houses actually have guns, but they have over 300 million guns. That's a lot of guns. And so you don't want to be joking about this topic at all. I think Trump is trying to stir up his base. He's so far behind in the polls that he's making sure his people will get out there and vote, especially the gun advocates, the ones who are against any kind of regulation whatsoever.
As you say, it's these kind of comments that have got Trump to where he is today. Will it continue to help him get further in the campaign?
Well, in the primary, he was able to win the primary by doing this because his base of supporters was the largest single group. But in the general election, they are a minority. As I said earlier, he's plateaued. He can't get beyond 35 or 40% of the vote. But if there's a low turnout, if many of the Hillary supporters are disenchanted with what happened during the primaries or whatever else, they don't trust Hillary, whatever the polls are saying, whatever the reason they stay home, if they stay home or they vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, Trump could actually win this election. And it's very, very concerning because many of the world's leaders do not trust Trump's judgment or his temperament, as many American leaders don't either. But he could actually win the election if that happens. Right now, he's 10 to 15% behind Hillary Clinton in the polls. But you never know what could happen on Election Day if this keeps going.
But what about the support from his Republican heavyweights? In recent days, we've seen more and more turning against him. And comments like this surely will just make that worse.
That's correct. Many are turning against him because they feel he's not only an embarrassment, but he could actually drive the ticket down. The down ballot races, for example, for the House of Representatives and for the Senate, for the Republican side are in jeopardy if he can't win by a large margin or if he can't win at all. He could actually drag down the other Republicans and they could lose because of him and his comments. That's why people like Paul Ryan are caught between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't want to lose that enthusiasm of the Trump voters in the primaries, and yet Paul Ryan knows it's a very dangerous game that Trump is playing and could really backfire. So many of the Republican leadership, Susan Collins, for example, Senator Collins from Maine, has come out and condemned this latest remark and said that Trump is just not fit to be a world leader because of his temperament. And other Republicans have said that too, but some of them don't want to leave Trump yet. They want to win their primaries first, because many of Trump's voters are very high propensity primary voters who they need in the next couple of months to win their primaries. After that, all bets are off. The Republican Party is in danger of splintering completely at this point, whether Trump wins or loses, because he's driven such a wedge among its people. He's also reaching some Democrats who are very pro-gun and also very pro-right wing, who've lost their jobs to overseas outsourcing of jobs. They're very angry. The Brexit vote in England, for example, in Britain, reflected that kind of anger, and that's happening in America as well. Trump is hoping to get some of those Democrats, those so-called Reagan Democrats or angry Democrats who've lost their jobs, working class, primarily white men, less educated, who are voting for him. That's just not enough of people to win him the election if that's all that vote for him in the end, unless Hillary's people stay home or they vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. That's the interesting dynamic right now.
Okay, really good to speak to you. Peter Mathews, there for us live in Los Angeles, a professor of political science at Cypress College.